It was a busy Monday morning at the headquarters of a well-known tech company. The sun was shining brightly, and the city was alive with the usual hustle and bustle. The company's office was a modern, glass-walled building that stood tall among the skyscrapers. Inside, employees were rushing to their desks, preparing for another day of meetings, deadlines, and innovation. The atmosphere was energetic, but also tense. Everyone knew that the new CEO was set to visit the office that day. No one had met him yet, and rumors about his leadership style were already spreading like wildfire. Outside the building, a man stood quietly, observing the scene. He was dressed in simple, casual clothes, a plain white shirt, dark jeans, and a pair of sneakers. He looked like an ordinary guy, someone you might pass on the street without a second thought. He carried a small backpack slung over one shoulder and seemed to be in no hurry. His calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the frantic energy of the office workers rushing past him. As he approached the entrance, the security guard at the front desk glanced up from his computer. The guard was a middle-aged man with a no-nonsense attitude, and he had been working at the company for years. He prided himself on knowing everyone who came in and out of the building. But this man? He didn't recognize him at all. "Can I help you?" the guard asked, his tone polite but firm. The man smiled warmly. "Yes, I'm here for the meeting." The guard raised an eyebrow. "Do you have an ID badge?" The man shook his head. "No, I don't. But I'm expected." The guard frowned. He had strict instructions to only allow authorized personnel into the building, especially today. The new CEO was arriving, and the last thing he needed was some random guy wandering around. He glanced at the man's casual attire and made a quick judgment. "I'm sorry, but I can't let you in without proper identification. You'll have to wait outside." The man didn't argue. He simply nodded and stepped back, leaning against the wall near the entrance. He didn't seem upset or annoyed. In fact, he looked almost amused, as if he were in on some private joke. Minutes passed, and employees continued to stream into the building. Some glanced at the man curiously, but most were too preoccupied with their own thoughts to pay him much attention. Inside, the office was buzzing with anticipation. The new CEO was supposed to arrive any minute, and everyone was on edge. Managers were double-checking presentations, receptionists were rehearsing their greetings, and the cleaning staff was making sure every corner of the office was spotless. Meanwhile, the man outside remained calm and patient. He watched the world go by, occasionally checking his phone but mostly just observing. He seemed completely at ease, as if he had all the time in the world. Back inside, the head of HR was pacing nervously in the lobby. She had been tasked with welcoming the new CEO, and she was determined to make a good first impression. She glanced at her watch for what felt like the 100th time. Where was he? The meeting was supposed to start in 15 minutes, and there was no sign of him. Just then, her phone buzzed. It was a message from the security guard at the front desk. "There's a man here who says he's here for the meeting, but he doesn't have an ID. Should I let him in?" The HR head frowned. That didn't sound like the CEO. She quickly typed back, "No, don't let anyone in without proper authorization. The CEO should be arriving any minute now." The guard read the message and nodded to himself. He glanced at the man still waiting outside and felt a twinge of guilt. The guy seemed harmless enough, but rules were rules. He couldn't make exceptions, especially not today. As the minutes ticked by, the tension in the office grew. The HR head was starting to panic. What if the CEO didn't show up? What if something had happened to him? She decided to call his assistant to see if there had been any updates. The assistant answered on the first ring. "Yes, he's already there," she said cheerfully. "He arrived a while ago." The HR head's heart skipped a beat. "What? Where is he? I haven't seen him." There was a pause on the other end of the line. He's there. I'm sure of it. Maybe he's just blending in. Blending in? The HR head's mind raced. What did that mean? She hung up the phone and rushed to the front desk. The security guard looked up, surprised by her sudden appearance. Did anyone come in earlier? She asked urgently. Someone who might have seemed out of place. The guard hesitated, then pointed to the man still waiting outside. Just him. He said he was here for the meeting, but he didn't have an ID, so I told him to wait. The HR head's eyes widened as she looked through the glass doors. The man was standing there, calm as ever, with a faint smile on his face. Her stomach dropped as the realization hit her. Oh no, she whispered. That's him. That's the CEO. The HR head's heart raced as she stared at the man standing outside. Her mind was spinning. How could this be? The new CEO was supposed to be a powerful, intimidating figure, someone who commanded respect the moment he walked into a room. But the man outside looked nothing like that. He was dressed casually, almost too casually, and he didn't seem bothered at all by being kept waiting. If anything, he looked amused. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. This was a disaster. The CEO had been standing outside for who knows how long, and she had just told the security guard not to let him in. What was she going to do now? She couldn't just walk up to him and say, "Sorry, we didn't recognize you." That would make her, and the entire company, look incompetent. But she didn't have time to overthink it. The meeting was supposed to start in less than 10 minutes, and the CEO was still outside. She had to act fast. "Let him in," she said to the security guard, her voice barely above a whisper. "Now." The guard looked confused but didn't argue. He stepped outside and approached the man, who was still leaning casually against the wall. "Sir, you can come in now," the guard said, his tone much more respectful than before. The man smiled and nodded. "Thank you," he said simply, as if nothing unusual had happened. He followed the guard inside, where the HR head was waiting, her face flushed with embarrassment. "Welcome, sir," she said, forcing a smile. "I'm so sorry for the misunderstanding. We didn't realize it was you." The man waved his hand dismissively. "No need to apologize. I should have introduced myself properly. But I thought it would be interesting to see how things work around here when no one knows who I am." The HR head blinked, unsure how to respond. Was this some kind of test? If it was, she wasn't sure if they had passed or failed. But there was no time to dwell on it. The meeting was about to start, and she needed to get the CEO to the conference room. "Right this way, sir," she said, gesturing down the hallway. "Everyone is waiting for you." As they walked through the office, employees glanced up from their desks, curious about the newcomer. Some recognized him immediately from the photos they had seen online, while others were still in the dark. Whispers spread like wildfire. "Is that him? Why is he dressed like that? What's going on?" The man didn't seem to notice, or if he did, he didn't show it. He walked with a calm, confident stride, taking in his surroundings with a keen eye. He noticed the way people interacted, the way they worked, the little details that most people would overlook. It was clear that he was observing everything, even if he didn't say much. When they reached the conference room, the HR head opened the door and stepped aside to let him enter. The room was filled with the company's top executives, all seated around a large table. They had been chatting nervously, but the moment the door opened, the room fell silent. The man stepped inside, and for a moment, no one knew what to say. The executives exchanged confused glances, unsure if this was really the CEO they had been waiting for. He didn't look like a typical corporate leader. He didn't wear a suit, he didn't carry a briefcase, and he didn't have the air of someone who was trying to impress anyone. But there was something about him, a quiet confidence, a sense of calm authority, that made everyone sit up a little straighter. The HR head cleared her throat. "Everyone, this is our new CEO," she announced, her voice trembling slightly. The man smiled and nodded. "Thank you," he said. "I know this isn't exactly the grand entrance you were expecting, but I wanted to see how things really are here. Not the polished version we show to the world, but the real, day-to-day operations. And I have to say, I'm impressed." The executives exchanged surprised looks. They had been prepared for a stern lecture, for tough questions, for a leader who would demand results from day one. But this? This was unexpected. The man took a seat at the head of the table and looked around at the faces staring back at him. "I'm not here to shake things up just for the sake of it," he said. "I'm here to listen, to learn, and to help us grow together. But I also believe in leading by example. And today, I think we've all learned something important." The room was silent as everyone waited for him to continue. What had they learned? That they needed to be more careful about who they let into the building? That they should never judge someone by their appearance? Or something deeper? The man leaned forward, his expression serious but kind. "Today, I saw how this company operates when no one is watching. And what I saw was a team of hardworking, dedicated people who care about what they do. But I also saw how easy it is to overlook someone who doesn't fit the mold. Someone who doesn't look or act the way we expect. And that's something we need to change." The executives nodded slowly, beginning to understand what he was getting at. This wasn't just about the mix-up at the entrance. It was about something much bigger, about the way they saw people, the way they treated others, and the way they approached their work. The man leaned back in his chair, his tone lighter now. "But enough about that. Let's talk about the future. I'm excited to be here, and I'm looking forward to working with all of you." As the meeting began, the atmosphere in the room shifted. The tension eased, and the executives started to relax. They still didn't know what to make of their new CEO, but one thing was clear: he wasn't like anyone they had worked with before. And maybe, just maybe, that was a good thing. The meeting progressed, and the new CEO continued to surprise everyone in the room. Instead of diving straight into numbers, profits, or strategies, he asked questions, simple, thoughtful questions that made people pause and think. He wanted to know what challenges the team was facing, what they were proud of, and what they thought the company could do better. It wasn't the kind of meeting anyone had expected, but it was refreshing. For the first time in a long while, the executives felt like they were being heard, not just evaluated. One by one, they began to open up. The head of marketing talked about the struggles of keeping up with rapidly changing trends. The head of engineering shared his concerns about outdated systems slowing down progress. Even the usually quiet head of customer service spoke up, explaining how the team often felt overlooked despite being the backbone of the company. The CEO listened intently, nodding occasionally and jotting down notes in a small, worn-out notebook he pulled from his backpack. When it was his turn to speak, he didn't deliver a grand speech or a list of demands. Instead, he shared a story. "A few years ago," he began, "I was working with a small startup. We didn't have much, no fancy office, no big budget, not even a proper logo. But we had a team of people who believed in what we were doing. We worked long hours, made countless mistakes, and faced rejection after rejection. But we kept going because we cared. And eventually, we succeeded. Not because we were the smartest or the most talented, but because we were willing to learn, to adapt, and to support each other." He paused, letting his words sink in. "I see that same potential here. You have the resources, the talent, and the drive to do something incredible. But I also see room for improvement. And it starts with us, with how we treat each other, how we communicate, and how we approach our work. I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to help us figure it out together." The room was silent for a moment, and then someone started clapping. Soon, the entire table joined in. It wasn't the kind of applause you'd hear at a corporate event, polite and rehearsed. This was genuine, heartfelt appreciation. For the first time in a long while, the executives felt a sense of hope. Maybe this new CEO wasn't just another suit. Maybe he was someone who truly understood what it meant to lead. After the meeting, the CEO didn't retreat to a corner office or disappear into a private elevator. Instead, he stayed behind, chatting with the team, asking more questions, and even cracking a few jokes. He seemed approachable, almost like one of them. It was a stark contrast to the previous CEO, who had been more of a distant figure, someone you only saw in boardrooms or company-wide emails. As the day went on, word began to spread throughout the office. The new CEO wasn't just different, he was real. He didn't put on airs or act like he was better than anyone else. He was just himself. And that made people want to follow him. By the end of the day, the mood in the office had shifted. The usual Monday exhaustion was replaced with a sense of excitement and curiosity. People were talking about the CEO's unexpected entrance, his down-to-earth demeanor, and the way he had made everyone feel valued. Even the security guard, who had initially turned him away, couldn't stop smiling. "I can't believe I told the CEO to wait outside," he said to a coworker. But you know what? He didn't even seem mad. He just laughed it off. As the CEO prepared to leave for the day, he stopped by the front desk. The security guard looked up, his face turning red with embarrassment. "Sir, I'm so sorry about earlier. I had no idea it was you." The CEO smiled and shook his head. "Don't worry about it. You were just doing your job. And honestly, I'm glad you did. It gave me a chance to see how things really work around here." The guard blinked, surprised by the response. "Well, I'm just glad you're not upset." "Upset?" the CEO chuckled. "Not at all. In fact, I think today was a good reminder for all of us. Sometimes, it's good to step back and see things from a different perspective. You never know what you might learn." With that, he slung his backpack over his shoulder and walked out the door, leaving the guard, and the entire office, with something to think about. The day had started with a mix-up, but it had ended with a lesson. And for the first time in a long while, everyone felt like they were part of something bigger. The next morning, the office buzzed with excitement. Employees who hadn't been in the meeting the day before were eager to hear stories about the new CEO. Those who had met him couldn't stop talking about how different he was, how he listened, how he laughed, and how he made everyone feel like their opinions mattered. For the first time in a long while, the office felt alive, as if a fresh breeze had swept through the stale corridors. The CEO arrived early, just as he had the day before. This time, however, the security guard greeted him with a wide smile and a respectful nod. "Good morning, sir," he said, his tone warm and welcoming. "Good morning," the CEO replied, returning the smile. "How's your day going so far?" The guard was taken aback by the question. No one had ever asked him that before. It's going well, sir. Thank you for asking." The CEO nodded and headed inside, but not before stopping to chat with a few employees in the lobby. He asked about their roles, their challenges, and even their weekend plans. It was a small gesture, but it left a big impression. People weren't used to being seen, let alone acknowledged, by someone in his position. As he made his way to his office, he noticed a young intern struggling to carry a stack of files. Without hesitation, he walked over and offered to help. The intern looked up, startled. "Oh, no, sir, I've got it," she said quickly, her face turning red. "Nonsense," the CEO said, taking half the stack from her. "Where are these headed?" "To the marketing department," she replied, still flustered. "Perfect. I was heading that way anyway," he said with a smile. As they walked together, he asked her about her internship, what she was learning, and what she hoped to do in the future. By the time they reached the marketing department, the intern was beaming. She couldn't wait to tell her friends about the CEO who had not only helped her but had also taken the time to listen. Word of the CEO's actions spread quickly. By mid-morning, the entire office was abuzz with stories about his kindness and humility. People who had been skeptical the day before were now eager to meet him. Even the most jaded employees found themselves wondering if this new leader might actually be different. Later that day, the CEO held an open forum in the cafeteria. He wanted to hear from everyone, not just the executives. Employees from all levels of the company gathered, curious and a little nervous. What would he say? What would he ask? Would this be another corporate pep talk, or something more? The CEO stood at the front of the room, his demeanor as relaxed as ever. "Thank you all for coming," he began. "I know how busy everyone is, so I'll keep this short. I'm here to listen. I want to know what's working, what's not, and what we can do better. But more than that, I want to know how I can support you. Because at the end of the day, this company is only as strong as its people." The room was silent as everyone processed his words. Then, slowly, hands began to go up. One by one, employees shared their thoughts, their concerns, and their ideas. The CEO listened carefully, nodding and taking notes. He didn't interrupt or dismiss anyone's input. Instead, he asked follow-up questions and thanked each person for their honesty. By the end of the forum, the atmosphere in the room had shifted. People felt heard, valued, and inspired. They left the cafeteria with a renewed sense of purpose, eager to contribute to the company's success. As the CEO walked back to his office, he couldn't help but smile. It was a small start, but it was a start. He knew there was still a long way to go, but he also knew that change began with small steps. And today, he had taken a few more. Over the next few days, the CEO continued to make his presence felt in ways that were both subtle and profound. He didn't issue grand directives or overhaul company policies overnight. Instead, he focused on the little things, the things that often went unnoticed but had a big impact on people's day-to-day lives. One afternoon, he noticed that the break room was looking a little worse for wear. The coffee machine was broken, the chairs were wobbly, and the fridge had a faint but persistent smell that no one wanted to investigate. Instead of calling facilities management, the CEO rolled up his sleeves and got to work. He fixed the coffee machine, tightened the screws on the chairs, and even cleaned out the fridge himself. When employees walked in and saw him scrubbing away, they were stunned. "Sir, you don't have to do that," one employee said, clearly embarrassed. The CEO looked up and smiled. "Why not? It's our space, and we should all take care of it. Besides, I don't mind getting my hands dirty." The gesture didn't go unnoticed. By the end of the day, the break room was spotless, and employees were buzzing about the CEO who wasn't afraid to do the grunt work. It was a small act, but it sent a powerful message: no task was beneath him, and no one was too important to pitch in. Later that week, the CEO decided to spend a day shadowing different teams. He wanted to understand their workflows, their challenges, and their successes from the ground up. He started with the customer service team, sitting alongside the representatives as they answered calls and responded to emails. He listened carefully, taking notes and asking questions when appropriate. At first, the team was nervous. Having the CEO watch them work felt like being under a microscope. But his calm demeanor and genuine interest quickly put them at ease. He even took a few calls himself, handling customer inquiries with patience and professionalism. The team was impressed, not just by his skills, but by his willingness to step into their shoes. Next, he visited the IT department, where he spent hours learning about the systems that kept the company running. He asked about their biggest pain points and listened as they explained the challenges of maintaining outdated infrastructure. By the end of the day, he had a newfound appreciation for their work and a list of ideas for how to support them better. The CEO's hands-on approach didn't stop there. He joined the marketing team for a brainstorming session, contributed ideas during a product development meeting, and even helped the janitorial staff clean up after a company event. Everywhere he went, he left a trail of inspiration in his wake. People felt seen, valued, and motivated to do their best. But it wasn't just his actions that made an impact, it was his attitude. He treated everyone with respect, regardless of their role or title. He remembered names, asked about people's families, and took the time to say thank you. It was a stark contrast to the previous leadership, and it didn't go unnoticed. One evening, as the CEO was leaving the office, he ran into a group of employees who were working late. They looked tired but determined, and he could tell they had been putting in long hours. Instead of offering empty praise, he sat down with them and asked how he could help. Together, they brainstormed ways to streamline their workload and make their jobs easier. By the time he left, the team felt re-energized and supported. As the days turned into weeks, the CEO's influence began to ripple through the company. Morale improved, collaboration increased, and a sense of unity started to take hold. People weren't just working for a paycheck anymore, they were working for something bigger. They were working for a leader who cared, a leader who led by example, and a leader who reminded them why they had joined the company in the first place. As the weeks went by, the CEO's unconventional leadership style began to yield tangible results. The changes he had introduced, small at first, but meaningful, started to transform the company culture. Employees felt more connected, more valued, and more motivated than they had in years. But the CEO knew that real change required more than just goodwill. It required action, and he was ready to take the next step. One morning, he called a company-wide meeting. The announcement came as a surprise to everyone, and speculation ran wild. What was he going to say? Was he going to announce layoffs? A major restructuring? Or something else entirely? When the day arrived, the entire company gathered in the largest conference room, with others joining via video call from remote offices. The room was buzzing with anticipation as the CEO stepped up to the podium. He looked out at the sea of faces, took a deep breath, and began to speak. "Thank you all for being here," he said, his voice calm but firm. "I know there's been a lot of speculation about what this meeting is about, so I'll get straight to the point. Over the past few weeks, I've had the privilege of getting to know many of you and learning about the incredible work you do every day. I've also seen the challenges you face, the outdated systems, the lack of resources, the communication gaps. And I want you to know that I hear you. I see you. And I'm committed to making things better." The room was silent as everyone waited for him to continue. He paused for a moment, letting his words sink in, and then dropped the bombshell. "Starting today, we're launching a new initiative called Project Forward. It's a company-wide effort to address the issues that have been holding us back and to create a stronger, more sustainable future for all of us. This isn't just about profits or market share, it's about people. It's about making sure that every single one of you has the tools, the support, and the opportunities you need to succeed." He went on to outline the key components of Project Forward. First, there would be a comprehensive review of all company systems and processes, with a focus on modernization and efficiency. Second, there would be a series of training programs to help employees develop new skills and advance their careers. Third, there would be a renewed emphasis on communication and collaboration, with regular town halls, feedback sessions, and cross-departmental projects. But the most surprising announcement came last. As part of Project Forward, he said, we're also introducing a profit-sharing program. Starting next quarter, a portion of the company's profits will be distributed equally among all employees. This is your company as much as it is mine, and I believe you should share in its success. The room erupted into applause. People were stunned, excited, and more than a little emotional. For many, it was the first time they had felt truly valued by the company. The CEO's words weren't just empty promises, they were backed by concrete actions, and that made all the difference. After the meeting, the CEO stayed behind to answer questions and talk to employees one-on-one. He wanted to make sure everyone understood the plan and felt comfortable sharing their thoughts. As he moved through the crowd, he was met with smiles, handshakes, and even a few hugs. People were eager to express their gratitude and share their ideas for how to make Project Forward a success. One employee, a mid-level manager who had been with the company for over a decade, approached him with tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she said, her voice trembling. "I've been here for so long, and I've never felt this hopeful about the future. You've given us something to believe in." The CEO smiled and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Thank you," he said. "This isn't about me, it's about all of us. We're in this together, and I know we can achieve great things if we work as a team." As the day went on, the excitement in the office was palpable. People were talking about Project Forward in every corner of the building, brainstorming ideas, and making plans. The CEO's announcement had sparked a wave of energy and enthusiasm that hadn't been seen in years. But amidst the celebration, the CEO remained focused. He knew that the real work was just beginning. Project Forward was a bold vision, but it would take time, effort, and collaboration to bring it to life. And he was ready to lead the way. The days following the announcement of Project Forward were filled with a renewed sense of purpose across the company. Employees from every department were buzzing with ideas, eager to contribute to the initiative. The CEO's office became a hub of activity as teams lined up to present their suggestions and plans. He made it clear that this wasn't just his project, it was everyone's. And he wanted every voice to be heard. One of the first changes to roll out was the modernization of the company's outdated systems. The IT department, which had long felt overlooked, was suddenly at the forefront of the transformation. The CEO spent hours with them, listening to their concerns and brainstorming solutions. Together, they identified key areas for improvement, from upgrading software to streamlining workflows. The team was energized by his hands-on approach and his willingness to invest in their success. But the changes weren't limited to technology. The CEO also focused on fostering a culture of collaboration and transparency. He introduced weekly cross-departmental meetings where teams could share updates, discuss challenges, and brainstorm solutions. These meetings quickly became a highlight of the week, as employees from different parts of the company came together to work toward a common goal. One such meeting led to a breakthrough idea from the marketing team. They proposed a new campaign that would not only promote the company's products but also highlight the stories of its employees. The CEO loved the idea and immediately gave it his full support. "This is exactly what Project Forward is about," he said. "It's not just about what we do, it's about who we are. And our people are our greatest asset." The campaign, titled Behind the Scenes, was a huge success. It featured videos and interviews with employees from all levels of the company, showcasing their roles, their passions, and their contributions. Customers loved getting a glimpse into the human side of the business, and employees felt proud to be part of something so meaningful. As the weeks went by, the impact of Project Forward became increasingly evident. Productivity improved, morale soared, and the company's financial performance began to reflect the positive changes. But perhaps the most significant shift was in the way people felt about their work. They weren't just employees anymore, they were partners in a shared mission. And that made all the difference. One afternoon, the CEO received an email from a young intern who had joined the company just a few months earlier. In it, she shared how much the initiative had inspired her and how grateful she was to be part of such a supportive and forward-thinking team. She ended the email with a simple but powerful statement: "Thank you for believing in us." The CEO was deeply moved by her words. He printed out the email and pinned it to the bulletin board in his office as a reminder of why he was doing what he was doing. It wasn't about profits or accolades, it was about making a difference in people's lives. But not everyone was on board with the changes. Some of the older executives, who were used to the traditional way of doing things, were skeptical. They worried that the CEO's approach was too radical, too risky. One of them even confronted him during a leadership meeting. "I understand what you're trying to do," the executive said, his tone cautious. "But isn't this all moving a bit too fast? What if it backfires?" The CEO listened patiently, then responded with a calm but firm voice. "Change is always risky," he said. "But standing still is riskier. We can't expect different results if we keep doing the same things. I believe in this team, and I believe in our ability to adapt and grow. But if you have concerns, I want to hear them. This is a conversation, not a monologue." The executive hesitated, then nodded. "I just want what's best for the company," he said. "So do I," the CEO replied. "And I believe that what's best for the company is what's best for the people who make it run. If we take care of them, they'll take care of the business." The room fell silent as the executives processed his words. Slowly, the skepticism began to fade, replaced by a cautious optimism. They still had their doubts, but they were willing to give the CEO's vision a chance. As the meeting ended, the CEO felt a sense of cautious hope. He knew that not everyone would embrace the changes right away, but he also knew that real change took time. And he was willing to put in the work. As Project Forward gained momentum, the company began to see results that even the most skeptical employees couldn't ignore. Productivity was up, employee satisfaction scores were at an all-time high, and the company's financial performance was stronger than ever. But the CEO knew that the true measure of success wasn't just in the numbers, it was in the stories of the people who made the company what it was. One such story came from the customer service team. For years, they had struggled with high turnover and low morale. The work was demanding, the hours were long, and the recognition was minimal. But under the CEO's leadership, things had begun to change. New training programs were introduced, workloads were balanced, and team members were given more opportunities to grow and advance. The result was a team that felt valued, supported, and motivated to do their best. One day, the CEO received a letter from a customer who had recently interacted with the team. The letter was filled with praise for the representative who had helped her, describing the experience as the best customer service I've ever received. The CEO was thrilled. He immediately shared the letter with the team, thanking them for their hard work and dedication. "This is what it's all about," he said during a team meeting. "You're not just solving problems, you're making a difference in people's lives. And that's something to be proud of." The team was visibly moved by his words. For the first time in a long while, they felt like their work mattered. And that made all the difference. But the CEO didn't stop there. He wanted to make sure that every employee felt the same sense of pride and purpose. He introduced a new recognition program called Spotlight Awards, where employees could nominate their peers for outstanding contributions. The awards were given out monthly, and the winners were celebrated in front of the entire company. It was a small gesture, but it had a big impact. People felt seen, appreciated, and inspired to go above and beyond. Meanwhile, the profit-sharing program was also making waves. When the first checks were distributed, the office was filled with excitement and gratitude. Employees who had never expected to share in the company's success were suddenly reaping the rewards of their hard work. For many, it was a life-changing moment. One employee, a single mother who had been struggling to make ends meet, broke down in tears when she received her check. "This means so much to me," she said during a town hall meeting. "It's not just the money, it's the fact that you see us, that you value us. Thank you." The CEO was humbled by her words. "Thank you," he replied. "This company wouldn't be where it is today without people like you. And I want you to know that this is just the beginning. We're going to keep pushing forward, together." As the months went by, the company continued to thrive. The changes introduced under Project Forward had not only improved the bottom line but had also created a culture of trust, collaboration, and innovation. Employees were more engaged, more motivated, and more committed than ever before. And the CEO's leadership style had become a model for other companies to follow. But despite the success, the CEO remained grounded. He continued to spend time with employees at all levels, listening to their concerns, celebrating their achievements, and reminding them of the bigger picture. He knew that the work was never done, and he was committed to keeping the momentum going. One evening, as he was leaving the office, he ran into the security guard who had first asked him to wait outside. The guard smiled and shook his hand. "You've really changed things around here," he said. "It's like a whole new company." The CEO chuckled. "I didn't do it alone," he said. "It's all of us, working together. That's what makes the difference." As he walked out into the night, the CEO felt a deep sense of satisfaction. He knew that there would always be challenges ahead, but he also knew that the company was stronger than ever. And with a team like this, there was no limit to what they could achieve. The company's transformation under the CEO's leadership had become the talk of the industry. Competitors were taking notice, and industry publications were filled with stories about the miracle turnaround. But for the employees, it wasn't about the headlines or the accolades, it was about the everyday changes that had made their lives better. The CEO had created a culture where people felt valued, supported, and empowered to do their best work. And that was something no amount of publicity could capture. 1 year after the launch of Project Forward, the CEO decided to hold a special event to celebrate the company's progress. It wasn't a flashy gala or a formal award ceremony. Instead, it was a simple gathering in the office courtyard, with food, music, and plenty of laughter. Employees from all levels of the company came together to celebrate their achievements and reflect on how far they had come. As the sun set and the lights twinkled overhead, the CEO stepped up to the microphone. The crowd fell silent, eager to hear what he had to say. "Thank you all for being here tonight," he began, his voice warm and sincere. "This past year has been incredible, and it's all because of you. You've shown what's possible when we work together, when we listen to each other, and when we believe in something bigger than ourselves." He paused, looking out at the faces of the people who had made it all happen. "When I first arrived here, I didn't know what to expect. I knew this company had potential, but I also knew it had challenges. What I didn't know was just how amazing this team would be. You've proven that with the right mindset, the right support, and the right leadership, though I use that term loosely, anything is possible." The crowd laughed, and the CEO smiled. "I'm not here to take credit for what we've accomplished. This is your success, your hard work, your dedication. I'm just here to remind you of how incredible you are and to thank you for letting me be a part of it." He went on to share a few stories from the past year, moments that had inspired him, challenges they had overcome, and lessons they had learned. He talked about the intern who had gone above and beyond to help a customer, the IT team that had worked tirelessly to modernize the systems, and the customer service representative who had turned a frustrated client into a loyal advocate. "These stories aren't just about individual achievements," he said. "They're about what happens when we come together as a team. They're about the power of collaboration, of empathy, of believing in each other. And they're a reminder that no matter how big the challenges we face, we're stronger when we face them together." As he finished his speech, the crowd erupted into applause. People were smiling, cheering, and even wiping away tears. It wasn't just a celebration of the company's success, it was a celebration of the people who had made it possible. After the speech, the CEO mingled with the crowd, shaking hands, sharing laughs, and thanking people for their contributions. He made a point to talk to everyone, from the newest interns to the most seasoned executives. It was a reminder of what had made his leadership so effective. He didn't see himself as above anyone else. He was just one part of the team, and he never forgot that. As the night wound down, the CEO found himself standing near the edge of the courtyard, looking out at the crowd. The security guard who had first asked him to wait outside walked over and stood beside him. "You've done something really special here," the guard said. "I've been here a long time, and I've never seen anything like it." The CEO smiled. "We've done something special," he corrected. "It's not about me. It's about all of us." The guard nodded, a look of respect in his eyes. "Well, whatever it is, I'm glad I got to be a part of it." As the CEO looked out at the smiling faces, the laughter, and the sense of camaraderie, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had set out to make a difference, and he had. But more importantly, he had created a culture where everyone felt like they could make a difference too. The journey wasn't over. There would always be new challenges, new goals, and new opportunities to grow. But for now, in this moment, it was enough to celebrate how far they had come. And as the CEO looked around at the team he had helped build, he knew that the best was yet to come.